This is a recording from a hybrid in-person and Zoom workshop held in Prescott, Arizona on May 31st, 2022. I have attempted to edit out faces and voices of participants as much as possible to maintain their privacy. Please follow along and pause the video as needed to participate. With love, Anna.
Welcome, everyone. Oh my God, I'm so excited to see so many people here. Thank you so much for wearing masks. I wanted to start us off with this quote from Adrienne Maree Brown. There is a conversation in the room that only these people at this moment can have. Find it. Adrienne Maree Brown from Emergent Strategy. We're going to be talking a lot about Adrienne Maree Brown today, but before we go into that, I'd love for us to go around and do introductions. Let me do some tech info for the Zoom folks first. So if you're on Zoom, please remember to mute yourself unless you're actively speaking. Kim or Sivan will be monitoring the chat box. Do you want to do it or? Okay. Sivan will be monitoring the chat box and any raised hands that you may have. And if you'd like to have closed captions that pop up as people are speaking, you can click on the three dots that say more and then click on live transcript and click on enable, and that'll basically translate what I'm saying as I'm speaking. And those of you in the room can see that showing up on the screen. So some of the elements of this meeting will require the use of a chat box. To use the chat box, you'll click on the three boxes that say more, then you'll click on chat, and then you can type where it says type message here. And to close it, you can click on the down arrow on the top left, then click close. So if I could see just a thumbs up from everyone, I'm seeing you on so make sure that's okay with folks and you're comfortable using the chat box. Udell, do you need any help using the chat box or do you feel okay about it?
No, but I don't see a more anywhere.
Oh, okay. Are you on your phone or your computer?
I'm on a computer.
Okay. It may just show up right at the bottom. Sometimes it'll show up and just say view transcript or live transcript.
Oh, I see live.
And then you'll click on that and you'll click enable.
Shows subtitle.
Great. And then there will also be a moment where we'll be using Zoom whiteboard. Oh, thank you. Let me let you in. And then just make sure the audio is all off on that. That'd be great. Thank you. So we'll be using Zoom whiteboard, which is a new feature. I've never actually used it in a meeting before, so fingers crossed it goes well. So it's a little difficult to edit if you're not on a computer. So when we get to that point for the folks on Zoom, you may designate note takers or type into the chat if you're not able to edit the whiteboard. And let me just show you really quickly what that looks like. Can people see that okay? So this is just an example. You'll go over here and you'll click on the little select button, and then you can just click on that or double click, I think, and then a little blinking cursor will show up and you can type whatever you want. So hopefully it'll be pretty straightforward once you get to that. Now let's do intros. So if we can go around, share your name, your pronouns, meaning whatever pronouns you prefer to be referred to, she, they, he, him, whatever it is. Your access needs, whatever you need in order to be as comfortable as possible in this space. I'm working under the assumption everyone has access needs. We all need things. So if your access needs are met, you can just say my needs are met. And then if you can share a short story about your name, and please keep it under about a minute. Great. Oh, so yeah, welcome. A little bit about who I am. I think all of you pretty much know me already, but I grew up here and attended Granite Peak, where I first got introduced to social justice, which would shape the rest of my life. I have been actively working in nonprofits and organizing spaces for 9 years now, going on a decade, which is wild. And most recently, Most recently, I worked as a paralegal and social services coordinator at an immigration nonprofit that helps asylum seekers and other immigrants to get papers. And I also worked at Reclaim Ugly, which is an organization, and I copied down their mission statement, dedicated to rewriting and decolonizing our understandings of beauty from white supremacy, the patriarchy, trans misogyny, fat phobia, ableism, and other systems of oppression. So I've been on a lifelong journey to learn how social justice happens and what we can do to make change happen. I was a sociology and Latin American major, and I also was part of a year-long cohort called Creating Freedom Movements, which was dedicated to learning about activism and social change from a framework of creativity and joy. So that's just to let you know a little bit about where my influences come from. These workshops are set up not to like I don't pretend to have the answers. I'm here really to share with you all knowledge that I've been lucky enough to kind of collect along the way and that I feel like can really change our world. And I hope that it can ripple out and create change in our communities. I also want to say that anything close to an answer that I do have is almost certainly learned from Black feminist activists and Indigenous wisdom. So I think it's really, really important for me to name that and name those folks specifically because they are doing the world-saving work with often very little acknowledgement or financial compensation. In fact, on the next page, I have some links, which I will also send out afterwards in an email to you all. If you have the financial means, throwing $5, $20 their way would go a long way. Some of the most powerful influences in my work have come from Adrienne Marie Brown, who we're going to talk about a lot today, Vanessa Rochelle Lewis, Sonia Renee Taylor, and Robin Wall Kimmerer. Wow, they all have 3 names. That's cool. Among many others. And yeah, I've included some donation links here. Okay, so oops. Can I go back here? Is this a thing that I can do? Okay, there we go. Yes, I will send it in an email afterwards. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, welcome to the first Changemaker Workshop. I am so excited to be here. I cannot tell you how excited I am. I have been wanting to do something like this for years. So these are basically monthly workshops for people who care about the world and want to learn skills to take meaningful action in our communities. My goal here is well, not just my goal, I'm hoping to pull in other facilitators too over time, but is to help you develop the skills you need to build and engage with radical, resilient, connected communities and to take action on issues that are important to you. So today we're going to be talking about the big picture for how we can make a difference and how to think big but start small with radical imagination. Oop, wow, nope, I really did not want to click on that. Okay. So yeah, we strive to be an actively accessible space. So if there's anything at any point that has become not accessible for you or you need someone to speak up or whatever it is, please let us know. And please also continue to wear your mask when indoors. As I mentioned before, I won't be wearing mine while presenting to be better understood. This is also a low or no scent space. So if you can refrain from wearing perfume and if possible, use non-scented shampoo, soap, lotion, and deodorant, that will help people with chemical sensitivities to be able to access our space. And yeah, if at any point you need to stand up, stretch, leave, use the bathroom, whatever. As Kelsey mentioned, the bathrooms are across the street. If you haven't been across the street before, I can just help you get there. And yeah, if you need anything else, let me know. We'll have a break around 6:45 or 7 to use the bathroom, have a snack, whatever, and then we'll come back. So yeah, agendas for today. We did intros and welcome. Just wanted to talk about the covenant and group agreements real quick. An intro to emergent strategy, which is Adrienne Marie Brown's kind of whole thing. And then we'll go through and read an excerpt, which I also emailed to you all. So if you already read it, that's what we'll be going through together. Then we'll have break. Then we'll talk about the radical and the impossible. And we'll do a group creative activity, imagining the world into existence, and then we'll close. So that's basically what we're doing today. Would anyone like to read this covenant or to do part of it and then someone else? Go ahead.
We are a welcoming space for people who are femme, black, indigenous, people of color, trans people, non-binary people, and people of all body shapes, sizes, and abilities. We strive to center the experiences, voices, and wisdom of the people who have experienced the most marginalization in our communities, wherever possible, and especially when speaking about the issues that affect folks directly. In order to create as loving a community as possible, there is no space here for white supremacy, body shaming, transphobia, ableism, classism, or patriarchal behavior. In situations where the comfort of one party would come at the expense of the safety of another party, we will always prioritize safety over comfort. No one is perfect, and we understand that we are each on our own journeys to become our better selves and that mistakes will happen. When they do, we are building a community where we each strive to approach the situation with openness to difficult conversations rather than defensiveness, with a desire to grow, with time to reflect and learn, and with a focus on healing, love, and trust building. We believe that together we can build a soft community of trust and care for one another. By being a part of this community, we make a commitment to show up as our best selves and to strive for open and caring communication, growth, healing, and love in all things. At this point, there was a conversation among participants creating some changes in the covenant.
All right, so let's get into it. I always tend to, my activism tends to start big picture and then go small picture from there. That's just the way that I think. And so for today, you all are going to be on this journey with the way that I think. So yeah, talking about the big picture, emergent strategy as a framework for liberation. So what is emergent strategy, right? Adrienne Maree Browns defines emergent strategy as how we intentionally change in ways that grow our capacity to embody the just and liberated worlds that we long for. So there's a lot in that statement. And I'm actually going to let her speak for herself in this next video.
Organizing for what we want, building collaborative strategies and learning better ways of relating to one. Organizing for what we want, building collaborative strategies and learning better ways of relating to one another and the planet. Adrienne Maree Brown talked about all that and more when I met with her recently in Detroit. She's a social justice facilitator, a pleasure activist, and the author of Emergent Strategy, Shaping Change, Changing Worlds. She's also the co-editor of Octavia's Brood, Science Fiction from Social Justice Movements. Here's Adrienne Maree Brown.
Strategies are ways of looking at the world, the natural world that we're a part of, and searching for collaborative efforts. Like, where does collaboration happen? Where is one relationship happening between humans and the planet, between different parts of the planet? And what can we as a species learn about how to be in right relationship with each other and with the planet that we're living on? We're filming this in September. And we've just come through a week where there were 3 hurricanes, an earthquake, a potential tsunami. There was flooding, there's droughts, there's a fire raging the entire West Coast. At the same time, all the news that's coming out of the White House is devastating for our folks. We have people who are like, DACA is the thing that has kept my family together, the thing that has allowed me to be in the place that I'm from. Everything feels like it's so heavy and so intense. And how do we survive this moment? It doesn't feel like we can. And emergent strategy posits actually all of these changes. These are something that we need to figure out how we embrace and how we also shape them. So emergent strategy is really life moves towards life, longing moves towards longing. And if we're not also organized towards what we really want and what we long for, we will always settle into just reacting and trying to stop something bad from happening. The trick of this book is that everything you need to know is on pages 41 and 42 and on page 50. If you just read those 2 pages, or you can look at page 15. Page 15 also basically has the entire thesis, everything about the book is right there. So this Octavia Butler quote, all successful life is adaptable, opportunistic, tenacious, interconnected, and fecund. Understand this, use it, shape God. So from that, I would say emergent strategy is learning how to be fractal. Small scale reflects the large scale. how to be adaptive in right relationship to change, but also with intention. Because if you just change all the time, you're just changing all the time, you're just a mess, you're just a leaf blown in the wind. But changing with an idea of like, oh, I'm a bird, I'm trying to get to Mexico for my migration. A storm came, how do I still get myself to Mexico? Then nonlinear and iterative, resilient, being in a practice of transformative justice, which I think we are just beginning to understand what transformative justice is or could be for us as a species. And then interdependent and decentralized, and always creating more possibilities. One of my favorite examples right now from sort of the world of nature has been in this flooding that's been happening with the hurricanes, watching how ants have come together to survive. And they basically create a foundation of their own bodies, like a bottom layer of their own bodies, that then other ants climb on top of until they create this floating mound that then is able to make sure that the majority of them survive until they come across something that is a higher ground. Right now, we are drowning in the overwhelm of this political moment and the overwhelm of hard decisions. How do we reach out and hold on to each other, knowing that holding on to each other makes us a more stable body that can actually float and not pushing each other down, not pushing each other under. One of my favorite examples in the human world is actually the work of Black Lives Matter and the movement for Black Lives, and feeling like this was emergent. It's not like someone sat down at a table and was like, I've got it all figured out. I know how we're going to catalyze Black people into their liberation fight and taking direct action right now. That's not what happened. There was just a heartbreak. It really, to me, it grows out of a heartbreak. Like if you look at the original post that Alicia put, it was like, my heart is broken and our lives matter. And that heartbreak was so catalyzed. And people were like, yeah, how do we organize ourselves around what we long for and we believe in this moment when everything is telling us we don't matter, but we know we do? How do we move that? And that so many people answered that call, and that they have really tried to hold like, oh, what does decentralization look like? How do we keep adapting to changing conditions? Things that organically emerge from a real desire and a real longing, those are the ones that catalyze the most other people. They're super compelling. Like when you see someone feeling a real emotion, that's what you want to move towards and be like, I want to be a part of this. It's not just getting me to sign my name on a petition. It's not just getting me to be a number in the street. You actually want me to care about my own life and my children's life. Yeah, I'm down for that. One thing I say in here several times is what you pay attention to grows. So this administration wants us to put all of our attention on that. And I would rather starve them with all of that attention, put all of it on the amazing work that's happening here in Detroit, in Jackson, in the Bay, and at all these other places. St. Louis, where people are like, we have figured it out, we're surviving. That's what I'm going to keep doing.
Yeah. I had to look that up too. It means able to reproduce, basically. So like, yeah, able to really be prolific and reproduce.
FBCUND.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I don't know what that is. It's a good word, right? Yeah, so cheat sheet for pages 41 and 42, as she shared. These are the principles of emergent strategy. So today, all we're really going to do is read through them. We're not going to go that deeply into this for now, but I do hope to weave this into future workshops as well. So the first principle, small is good, small is all. The large is a reflection of the small. Change is constant. You like water. There is always enough time for the right work. There is a conversation in the room that only these people at this moment can have. Find it. And that's the quote we opened with. Never a failure, always a lesson. Trust the people. If you trust the people, they become trustworthy. Move at the speed of trust. Focus on critical connections more than critical mass. Build the resilience by building the relationships. Less prep, more presence. And what you pay attention to grows. So you may have noticed there's sort of a dandelion theme to all the different signups and posters and things for this. And the reason for that is because I think they're a great metaphor for emergent strategy. They adapt to many different environments. They take advantage of opportunities to grow and thrive. They show persistence and resilience in making your lawn more colorful despite your best efforts. They're interconnected with other species and they provide medicine and sustenance. They change their very beings. They go from sprouts that find rooting to flowers that attract pollinators to fluffy seeds that may or may not grant wishes. I like to believe that they do. And they reproduce and spread their glory by using the natural transportation of the wind. So they're adaptable in that way as well. And I also found this while I was looking at pictures of dandelions. I found this little comic. So the comic says, it's a purple flower. It says, good soil, warm sun, fresh water, and lots of love. It takes special care to keep little old me alive. And then from off the panel, you hear, oh, please. And there's sort of like a crusty looking dandelion saying, I'm growing in a sandy crack of cement. They tried to poison me and it only made me stronger. And the moral of the story is, in a world full of pansies, be a dandelion. So a couple quotes to sort of get us started on our first step, which is radical imagination, right on the flyer. From Martin Espada, no change for the good ever happens without it being imagined first, even if that change seems hopeless or impossible in the present. And the artwork here is of a hand holding a purple book with some blue background and some white leaves coming down. And it's done by Monica Trinidad, 2021. Then the second quote is, the ultimate hidden truth of the world is that it is something that we make and could just as easily be made differently. By David Graeber, and the artwork is of an outline of a hand threading a needle with some pink flowers and a purple background. And the artist is Kate DeCiccio. I probably said that wrong. Any thoughts about emergent strategy or questions or ideas before we move on? We have about 3 minutes if anyone has anything they'd like to share. So now we're going to share an excerpt from Emergent Strategy.
Please find and read this excerpt in pages 18 through 23 of Emergent Strategy.
So we're going to do a post-it activity. So I'm going to break you up into, I think we'll do 3 groups in here, and then the Zoom group will be our 4th group. So it'll be, actually Zoom will be part of our 4th group, and I'll include a couple people from in person. So basically what the post-it activity is, you're going to get some post-its and you'll each be posited with a question. So I'm gonna place these sheets of paper around so you can see which table goes with which question. And basically you're gonna chat about it, and then let me look at my timing, 1 second. So you'll discuss it and then you'll share your thoughts on the post-it. You'll have about, let's do about 10 minutes to discuss. It's gonna go by really quickly. If you get beyond the question that you were answered, that you were given for your group, you can go ahead and answer other things. But the idea is to just have a discussion about these things. So the 4 questions are, first one is, what does it mean to live in the ancestral imagination of others? Whose imagination are we living in? What are the real world consequences of that? The second one is, what is the imagination battle that Adrienne Marie Brown is talking about? What does it look like for us to meaningfully engage in this imagination battle? Third one is, how do we practice the future together? What can that look like in a practical everyday sense? And the last one is, what does it mean to make just and liberated futures irresistible? What does it look like to center pleasure and joy in our movements?
Please pause the video and pick at least one question to answer for yourself.
Okay, so welcome back. I don't know if I just want to do like a woohoo thing. It's all okay, ready? Go. Woohoo! Right, thank you. Just needed something to bring us back into the space. So I'm really excited about our final activity that we're going to do. So I'm going to kind of just run through the next few slides. Normally I would stop and, we talk about it a little bit more. But I'm really excited for the last thing. So Yeah, so what does radical mean? We sort of talked about this previously, but it's defined as Angela Davis as radical simply means grasping things at the root. So when you're hearing about, like, I often call myself a radical leftist, and all that means is that I'm just trying to pull some weeds, you know? And yeah, so we'll leave it there for now. I will share these slides if you want to read through them later. But yeah, when we talk about the radical and we talk about examples of pulling things up at the roots, a lot of times when I've had conversations with folks, they'll tell me, you know, well, that just sounds impossible. That's just not, you're being naive. I get that one a lot. You're being too idealistic, you know? So let's talk about the impossible. Where we can go around and maybe hear from 3 people. Where are we hearing stories that tell us that certain kinds of change are practically impossible? And just popcorn it out.
Ask yourself, where are you hearing stories that tell us certain kinds of change are impossible? Who is telling these stories?
Yes. So what is the first step in making the impossible possible?
Pause and ask yourself, what is the first step in making the impossible possible?
Imagination, creativity, trust, and belief. I think that's a great start, folks. And, you know, as Jackie said, first we have to tell ourselves a story where the impossible is reality. In other words, imagining. So the stories we tell matter. I want that. If you take one thing away from tonight, that's what I want you to take away. The stories that we tell matter, and the stories that we tell ourselves and the stories we tell each other, they matter. So these are a few things that I used to think were true. There isn't enough food in the world, and that's why some people starve. I used to think climate change is not reversible, and there are only 2 genders. And then I learned only 2 genders. And then I learned that there is more than enough food, water, healthcare, and education for everyone in the world. It's access that's restricted, mostly due to overlapping systems of oppression. So this is talking about scarcity mindset. We're told over and over again that there's not enough of everything. We learn that, oh wait, actually there is enough, then we start to question, well, then why are we doing things in a way where not everyone has access? And I think it's really important to keep in mind. So absolutely, we are in a crisis with climate change. I don't want to underplay that. And we have to act intentionally, collectively, and immediately to slow it down. However, there is also increasing evidence to show that through biomimicry, which Adrienne Marie Brown was talking about, reforestation, changing how we harvest food, and other processes, we can actually return carbon and other greenhouse gases into the earth, which is where they're supposed to be. And I'm happy to share more resources about this if you're interested, because my mind was blown. And there are only 2 genders. Gender expression is something that's socially constructed, which if you want to have more conversations about that later, happy to talk about it. But even biologically, there are more than 2 types of humans. It's estimated that up to 1.7% of humans are intersex, which means that they're not born into neat biological categories of female or male. And I can, again, send you resources for that if you're interested. Mm-hmm.
There are cultures in the world that have more than two genders.
Absolutely.
It's part of their view of life.
Yeah, including our own culture.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, no, but absolutely. You are totally right. Yeah, thank you. Okay, well, we're just going to go through that again. And there we go. We're going to skip this question for now. So just a couple stories that have changed the world. We want 8 hours work from the labor rights movement. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Mahatma Gandhi, who led the Indian independence movement. Yes, we can. Barack Obama, first Black US president. We are the 99%, Occupy Wall Street movement. Black Lives Matter movement. Ni una menos, not one less, from Latin American movement against gender violence. And a quote from Bell Hooks, who actually just passed away last year. Hope is essential to any political struggle for radical change when the overall social climate promotes disillusionment and despair.
To my list when you were doing the work.
That's great. So today we are going to literally create the world that we want to live in. So what that means, and I'll show you an example, is basically we're going to get into groups again, and we're going to imagine a world where that brings us joy and pleasure. And I'll give you a little bit more guidance on that. But here's the gorgeous example that I created. It looks like a 12-year-old drew it, maybe a 3-year-old, but here we are.
Not a 3-year-old.
No, thank you. So this is a reimagining of my neighborhood. I live on a cul-de-sac. And so I have redesigned the buildings. There's natural vegetation on the roofs, which blend in with nature and also create less heat being radiated up. All clean energy. These are solar panels, in case you couldn't tell. There's a pride progressive flag. People can be openly gay and trans without fear. There's a flag with a little heart on it. Everything we do comes from a place of love. I wanted to introduce the impossible, and I'm obsessed with magic, so also people can fly now in my imaginary world. And we have to bring in some joy and some fun to this too. Natural lands are preserved and tended to by the people. Land is also returned to Indigenous people. The cul-de-sac is now a community area with some native plants growing, some community music, a playground, public transit for the hover car. What?
The hover car is electric?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Oh.
totally clean energy. Yeah, thank you for clarifying. There's community food. All the people in the neighborhood are super different and diverse, and we all get along and learn from each other and hang out. There's a community center for learning and creativity, and there's a community garden with free food. So just by starting small and imagining what my little community could look like, I really was just thinking about what are all the things that bring me joy, what makes me happy, and I kind of drew them into existence. So some elements of the world that we're going to be creating. We're going to start small, as Adrienne Marie Brown has shown us. Small is good, small is all, and it creates patterns for the larger world. So start by thinking about your own pleasure as it relates to the world. Then think about your family and friends, your neighborhood, your work. The largest scale that this project should get is the Quad City area or your local area. I think so I know one person's joining us from Colorado. Some questions to ask yourself when you're planning this. What feels genuinely pleasurable? What brings me joy? How can we make sure that people of all abilities, genders, races, classes, place of origin, etc., are cared for in this world? How are we incorporating the natural world into the future we're creating? And how can we actively invite the impossible into this world? So I'll go back to that in a moment so you can look at it. But basically, I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to journal on your own and think about it. And then in your groups, you'll pick one person to take notes and pick a second person to invite input from folks who may be quieter in the group. Emphasis on invitation, listening is as important a skill as sharing. And then start by going in a circle. Everyone will have a chance to share a few things they'd like to envision for the world. And then practice listening without judgment while you're planning what you're going to say next or respond. And then together you'll create either a collaborative visual of the world you've created, or you can create a poem about it or some other creative process. But the idea is to come through with some sort of creation. And then depending on time, groups will have opportunity to share for 3 minutes each. We probably won't get to everyone, but maybe a couple groups can share. So does that basically make sense to folks?
Maybe
We have buy-in.
Can you just say what we're journaling about?
Yes. So, nope, that's not what we want. So basically, you're journaling about what this project for yourself might look like, what your drawing, your poem, or whatever would look like, or your ideal world. And you can even start from just yourself. Like think about what would it look like to to live in a world that's pleasurable and joyful just for me. You don't even have to go to the neighborhood or work or friends or the community. Small is all. And then, so these are the elements of the world.
Please pause the video and take 5 minutes to journal about or consider your ideal world. When you're done journaling, take some time to create a piece of this world that you imagined, whether through drawing, poetry, music, or otherwise. Remember, small is all.
I cannot tell you, I literally was getting shivers walking around this room. This is my jam. I love this. This makes me so happy. We have time for one group to share for like a minute, if that.
Whether you're watching this video by yourself or working through it with others, find a way to share what you've created with at least one other person today. Radical imagination is about imagining a better world into existence together.
All right, so just to wrap up, I wanted to talk a little bit about fractals. So fractals was what Adrienne Marie Brown was talking about, and she has this quote. Oh, by the way, I realized in this excerpt, I didn't tell you all who Octavia Butler is. If you don't know, she is a kind of the mother of Afrofuturism in a lot of ways. She wrote some really incredible books. Parable of the Sower, I think, is the most influential one. Prepare yourself if you choose to read it. It is scary how close to our reality it is. But she's amazing because she also brings her characters through it. And anyways, read the book, it's great. So in many of Octavia Butler's books, she shows us how radical ideas spread through conversation, questions, one-to-one interactions. Social movements right now are also fractal, practicing at a small scale what we most want to see at the universal level. Adrienne Marie Brown, page 22 of Emergent Strategy. And then a quote from Grace Lee Boggs: transform yourself to transform the world. So with that in mind, oh, and then another quote. So we're going to come back to, again, what we started with. Emergent strategy is how we intentionally change in ways that grow our capacity to embody the just and liberated worlds we long for. Adrienne Lee Brown. So I just wanted us to take a moment, just like 2 minutes to journal, or not journal really, but just to like take one thing that you want to remember from today. What is a change that you can make right now that embodies the liberated world that you long for? So like this world that we all just spent the past few minutes imagining, what would it look like to live into that world, to bring it into your current reality, bring that future into your reality? So for example, for mine is all about neighborhood and getting to know your neighbors and things. So I really want to, sometime this week, start a conversation with a neighbor who I didn't know previously. And then long term, I really have been wanting to throw some sort of like cookout potluck thing, because I do live on a cul-de-sac. So I think it would be perfect. So, okay, great. And then also think about, what would it mean to share the story that you created in community today, in collaboration today with others? What does it mean to bring the story that we created today in this room to the rest of the community outside of this room? So think about that when you're kind of trying to bring it into one thing to remember. So take 2 minutes to write it down or dictate it so you can save it to remember. And then also feel free to use the available art supplies to make it beautiful if you'd like. And then after we're done with that, we'll do a quick closing and we'll be all done. So I'll give you about 2 minutes to do that right now.
Please pause the video and take a few minutes to write down or consider one change that you can make right now to embody the liberated world that we long for.
Yeah, so thank you all so much for being here today. It really, the turnout, I was like, oh, are 3 people gonna come? I don't know. And like, look at you all. It's amazing. So happy you're here. So just to close us out, I wanted to share this quote from Octavia Butler. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only truth is change. God is change. And Parable of the Sower.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Please reach out to Anna Flurry at ANNAFLURRY.com if you're interested in more offerings. I hope you have a beautiful day.